Hi, I'm Alan Nathan, host of Battle Line, aired nationally on the Radio America Network, now celebrating over 12 years of national syndication. This is My Aggressive Centrism. We want the Republicans out of our bedroom, the Democrats out of our wallets, and both out of our First and Second Amendment rights. As you've undoubtedly heard, Arizona passed a controversial bill to cope with their illegal immigration problem because, well, of the crime, violence, and general social service costs being generated by it. Despite all polls showing 70% of Arizonans wanting it and over 64% of Americans supporting it too, we have the White House, most Democratic leaders, and some senior Republicans actually opposing it. Why? They insist that it's racist and would trigger racial profiling. This is very strange, since the law specifically forbids racial profiling and only permits their police officers to make inquiries about one's immigration status should the suspect be engaged in either an ongoing crime or suspicious activity. You would think this would suffice, but it doesn't. Why? I can only think of three possibilities. One, they're bad faith objections motivated by corporate righties wanting cheap labor and socialist lefties wanting cheap votes. Two, they're unaware of both constitutional and federal laws requiring our government to protect us from invasion. And oh, by the way, yes, 500,000 violating our homeland each and every year does constitute an invasion. And three, the opponents all have the intellectual muscularity of an airborne toenail clipping. Here's the inarguable fact. We are a nation of laws, not men. What that means is that the laws being violated always matter more than the personalities or demographics of those violating said laws. That's what being equal under the law has always meant. We can't simply stop enforcing certain laws because at certain times in our country's timeline, we might find that a particular law is disproportionately violated by one group or another. By that measure, we could find ourselves allowing some to break laws more than others simply because of their skin color. Haven't we learned anything in that regard? Look, if it's wrong to assume guilt based on race and ethnicity, then it's equally wrong to shield guilt based on race and ethnicity. You cannot have one without the other. Consequently, when Democrats like President Obama and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, or Republicans like former Florida Governor Jeb Bush and Florida's House Speaker and Senate candidate Marco Rubio claim that it's racist to enforce our own laws, then they are exposing agendas having nothing to do with the universal standards to which the rest of us must comply. In short, when they make assertions of racism without premise, they're committing racism in the name of fighting it, because they're using race to marginalize otherwise innocent folks, thus fulfilling the very definition of racism. And they're not fooling anybody. These are cry wolf racists, and we see them and their supporters for what they truly are. By the way, mine are not the musings of a right-winger. I'm pro-social safety nets, pro-choice, pro-gay rights, pro-gay marriage, pro-interracial marriage. Hell, I'm pro-interracial marriage between gays. I'm just of the view that one can be a social progressive while still embracing folks like the Tea Partiers in their demands for constitutional compliance and responsible spending. It's that simple. Mr. President, you, Bush 43, and Congress have no right to blame Arizona for the consequences of your own collective making. If you would simply control the borders and enforce our laws, you could immediately see movement on pathways to citizenship. Why? Because Americans would stop feeling insulted by a government insisting that before we Americans can have our constitutionally entitled protection from invasion, we first have to accept legalizing the invaders as the condition for that protection. Very strange. Today, the final message is this, Mr. President and fellow open border advocates. It's wrong for you to refer to illegal immigrants as immigrants, simply because it wrongly allows you to mischaracterize legitimate criticism against the former as if it's bigotry against the latter. That crap no longer works, and you would be well advised to give it up. It makes all of you sound both uninformed and a skosh illiterate. Thanks for joining My Aggressive Centrism. I'm Alan Nathan.